So good evening, everyone. I hope I'm audible, right?
Yeah, you're
And
audible.
I welcome you on the behalf of the entire team of Legally Flawless, with the objective of spreading legal awareness and guidance amongst law students and young graduates. We have been operating since the year 2020. This session is the part of our GAN series, where we have had the opportunity to interact with law firm partners, senior advocates, judges, and other leading professionals. So without any further ado, let's begin with the session. I welcome you to our webinar on how to write research papers on the behalf of the entire team of Legally Flawless. We are thrilled to have Lokesh Vyas sir joined us as a resource person for our workshop. Lokesh sir is a law graduate from Nirma University and recently graduated from American University, Washington College of Law, where he was a recipient of Arcadia Fellowship and Arodhum Scholarship. Currently, he is pursuing PhD at Sciences Po Law College, Paris, working on the topic of genealogy of copyrights, balance, rhetoric. Lokesh sir has a keen interest in intellectual property laws, contract laws, legal theory, legal history, tech, information and cultural regulations, open access inclusions, freedom of expression, critical legal studies, and jurisprudence. During his LLM, he has worked as a research assistant under PIJIP's Arcadia project on the right to research in international copyright law and also worked as a research volunteer at the Knowledge Ecology International, Washington, D.C. He regularly writes on the issues of intellectual property, innovation, media, and entertainment for Spicy IP and IPR Ment Law to leading IPR blogs in India. Now, without any further ados, I'd like to turn the session over to Sir. Sir, I hand it to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dhruv, for your kind introduction. But feel free to call me Lokesh. There's no need to call me sir. I completely get it. So first of all, thanks a lot, of course, and the whole and the team of Legally Flawless for inviting me here and to speak of the topic of research. It's been it's a really great pleasure and honor for me to come and speak about this topic. I'll keep this topic very short. So the format can be like this. I can speak about 10 to 15 minutes about the topic of research and have certain points to highlight, and followed by you can raise questions, and then I'll try to answer those questions. And if you have any questions after that, feel free to reach out to me on email, and I'm happy to help you out. Uh, so I'll begin. Uh, yeah, you can see it, right? Can you see
Yes,
it?
sir, it's visible. It's visible.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so first I'll just raise the simple, I think, a very clear question of why do you want to write papers. So initially, when I was doing my law school in Nirma, when I was doing my LLB, the initial idea of writing this paper was more about CV building, and I used to write a lot of blogs and online writing. But after that, it also shaped my interest about how writing also helps you build your own network of network or community of readers. So when I was doing my LLM applications and when I was doing certain funding required and things like that, at that time this whole this networking of this network of readers, like I they really helped me about a lot of things. Thirdly, you can also write about certain topics just for your own sake. For example, writing sometimes also help you bring clarity about a topic. For example, as of now, I'm doing my research on this history of copyright law. But then I'm also looking at the specific components of the research just to have a better clarity on how this topic flows in general. And then people who are normal also in India, I think abroad as well, and also for your master's application, you're normally required to show that okay, you have written something. So we will also write, like again, a part of CV building, but basically, for example, some people write just before the application submission, just 2, 3 articles in top national it's newspapers and things like that. And sometimes we just write for fun because we just like writing, and we have no motive of CV building or networking. We just write for the sake of writing. Now, coming of the parts of research, this is a very broad thing that I'm saying. Generally, your paper can be called, like if it can say that a paper will have 5 major parts, and this can also be I think so this can also be similar for your blog writing or for online online writings. So in this case, generally when I say title should ideally show what is the gap that you've identified, and I will explain to you what I mean by gap and claims in the next slide. But I'll just give a simple example of how it goes. For example, if I'm let's say if my topic is let's for example if this recent case in copyright law in India, this says that uh, film producers do not have moral rights. So I'll just say my topic can be like very descriptive like this. Uh, like do film producers have ABC and then semicolon analyzing the case of ABC. It's a very simple way of saying it. But ideally, your title should show the gap that you identified or the claim that you are making, yes or no. Footnote one is generally about the author's introduction, but that you also like thank people who have helped you for research. In my writings, I often thank people who have helped me throughout my research, and so it helps in two ways. First, it is always good to help people, and because then you can also tell them that, hey, because I've mentioned your research, like I've mentioned your name in the paper, is it okay or not? And to have a like and to build your own community. And secondly, sometimes uh, some like acknowledging some people who have really helped you, and they are really they are really famous in the field. It also helps you like increase the chances of your publication. And yeah, so this is good in general. uh, Third, abstract should ideally be a very quick words, like very short, uh, like very short version of your paper. It basically shows that what is the gap that you identified, what is the main claim that you are making, and how are you going to fill this gap by your claims. And if I take your research seriously, what will happen after that? It's a very short, ideally 5-6 lines paragraph. In introduction, you basically expand this abstract in saying that, hey, this is a hook, this is the gap, this is the claim, and these are the implications of my research. Then arguments basically expand your claims, and conclusion is more or less a similar thing. That like whatever you have shown, you try to chalk out the relevant criticism of your paper, and then you address them and show that okay, why your why your paper is relevant. This is a very big that I've explained to you, but now I'll tell you how this specifically goes. Right. Yeah. So when it is, and so normally a paper or your abstract or introduction has this 5 parts, which first is hook. For example, in some of my for example, I'll give you example of that now. And this hook here can be I've uh, uh, can you see uh, this title now, this page?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Yeah, yeah. So, for example, hook part of of this this post of this article can be this specific line, this line that's, hey, I've seen this thing, whether it is coming or not. So even if it is not specifically about the argument itself, it kind of gives you a reason to the reader to read my article. Let's say I wonder what is whether it is happening or not. So it's kind of a catchy phrase which kind of which more or less contemporizes your article of where you are taking it and where you are taking the reader. uh, After that, you basically show the gap, and gap can differ in for your blog post and for your research papers. For research papers, it is normally like this, that let's say there has been too much focus on the rights of authors or the rights of musicians and writer producers, but there has been a very little focus placed on the right of directors. So and then you have to cite that okay, the author's rights is a lot of like there's a lot of discussion on that and same other things. And then you should okay, there's a very little discussion on director's rights in film. Then you show 1 or 2 articles, and then you try to fill the gap. So this is the broad gap that you normally identify in the case of research papers. For blog posts, basically what you do, so basically you say that okay, this is the case which you have come. For example, I have highlighted it here. So look at this is the example of blog post where I show you the gap. So I say that this is the hook which I've identified, and this is a kind of my prior literature which I'm showing that hey, she has already worked on this thing. and then I'll say, okay, what this case does. This case does this thing, and this is the one which I'm going to do here. This is more or less so emphasize it basically means that currently it is not emphasized in blog posts like this is how you do it. And in the case of the other blog post that I'm going to show you here, it is more about see so this is the gap. That's why people are focusing too much on fair dealing. But are we do we have a belief in this, like belief in fair dealing, or it is more of a faith in the system? Then they are saying, okay, this is problematic. So this problematic part is what I've called gap now, and I'm going to fill this gap. So they say I've argued that okay, I'm arguing this thing by filling this gap. This is a more of indirect way of showing that okay, this is gap. In the paper, it is like it should be more clear, like it should be clearer, like this way. This is an abstract sort of a paper that I recently wrote. So this is, if you see, this is a kind of hook that hey, uh, everybody's like this corporate balance metaphor came in 1785, but it has evaded like historical research. It means that there's a gap which I've already shown here, and the gap paragraph of your paper is generally like wait a minute, I'll mention it somewhere here. Yeah, this is how you write your gaps. You say, okay, while there's been too much focus on this thing, there's a very little scholarship on like in the Indian context, and then you show that okay, I'm going to fill this gap. So, so your paper you normally write a your so your paper you normally explain like why the gap exists and how do you plan to like fill this gap. Uh, for your methodology, which is not very much like, which is not very explicit and not extremely relevant for your blog post because you normally put like present your arguments, although it is already there. For example, writing about let's say on honest and concurrent use in trademark law, and if you're going to the history of the same and showing that okay how it has changed from principle, how it has changed from a principle to a provision, then you may have to show the history of the same. So it is more or less your methodology will be of historical methodology, but then generally you just have to show that okay in my like I'm going to fill this gap by looking at the history or by looking at the psychological aspect of this thing or how economics of law works in this case. So this is the broad way of doing it. Then your claim is basically you say that hey, since there has been, for example, taking the example of this director's rights, and you say that hey, there's been too much focus on authors and composers and film producers, but there's been no focus or like rather little focus on director's rights, and then you'll say that okay, I'm going to give you three claims that why they should be given rights. First, you'll say, for example, like if you look philosophically, then they are also authors. Then you show the history and everything. And second shows okay how in India like we have looked at them. Then you look at the logical interpretation of the statute and things like that. So normally like this how you make your claim. And if you put your claim like this example, let's say there was a debate in 2010 about this director's rights, and then you say okay, but as of now we have nothing. So first part of claim generally has a historical background of what like how things look as of now. Second part, like you kind of contemporize them and you say okay, this is how it looked like and this is how it can be. And then third party normally said that okay, if you take my this first plus two seriously, then in future we can have this thing. This is normally like you run your arguments, and sometimes like even you just single one claim of for example your claim is a simple one that directors can also be authors, and now this can have three components like philosophically how they are, historically how they have been, and then third psychological factors how that also proves the same. For your implications, you normally show that your research, if taken seriously, how it can help legislators or or judges to have some outcomes. So how your research can have policy outcomes or judicial outcomes if taken seriously. That that's how you research. That's how you write implications. So, for example, I'll give you an example of this here, and maybe then you can get an idea. Uh, so, if you look at this paper in the abstract part itself, I've in the last I've I've shown it here. Okay, if you can see that this paper can help understand the changing consideration of public interest better, which occupies a pivotal place in the balanced discourse. So this is how I've shown that hey, uh, this is the implication. Now, if you want to look at like these five factors again, let's look them here. That hey, this is your hook. This is your gap wave. All the topic of why and how to achieve balance in copyright law is perhaps the most common thing in copyright law. This little scholarship, which means it is a point of specific gap that you identified. Now you say that okay, I'm going to fill this gap by making three claims. So you clearly say that okay, these are my three claims, 1, 2, and 3, and then you say okay, and then if you have a specific comment about the paper itself in the beginning that hey, this paper does not do this or does do this, or you can simply like mention it here that say it is not the idea of this paper, the objective of something else. And once you say that, and then you can finally say that hey, this is the implication of the paper. Often like why I've not mentioned methodology here specifically, because my my claims are very much clear on this thing. Because like when I'm saying that hey, I'm going to show you this example, I've mentioned it here, that there exists no clarity regarding what is to be balanced, whether at national international level and in the historically and contemporarily. It means I've like implicitly said that my methodology like will be of a historical way of looking at the research. This is broad idea how you can look at this research. And then few things that you need to focus on is this, that whenever you use specific terms, like for example, if your paper hinges on certain concepts or certain terms that you identified yourself or that you have taken from somebody else, always mention it. For example, if I'm using a term like citation game, then I have to define what do I mean by citation game, who used the term, and how I'm changing the meaning of this term. I've done the same. For example, in my paper, I make up terms and I give new names to things. So in that case, I have to explain that okay, why am I doing it, and where am I coming from if I do it, and how it also helps my claims and fills the gap. Secondly, when you make your arguments, you also have to clarify like your assumptions or your biasness. Example, when you say that hey, in copyright law we have never focused on the, like for example, if you say that, okay, copyright law, the language of rights is becoming very much prevalent uh, since the case of DU photocopy case. So basically you have to show that okay, even if I'm saying that like that DU photocopy case is the most important case to look at when it comes to rights language, but you have to make I also mention that like this is like this is not the last study that I'm going to do, and this may also change. For example, in the cases previously, like in 1976 something, like they may have been courts which have used the term already. So you have to mention the like you have to make your claim very carefully. And if you're not sure about certain things, like you can simply make it like arguably it is true, or assumably this is true, or things like that. And after the and in your and in the last part of the paper, in your conclusion part, try to chalk out the criticism of your paper and then respond to them. For example, if you're doing a historical research, I'll give you example of how I've used this thing, and then maybe it's my ongoing paper, so I'm just taking out the paper. The idea is to just okay, even look at your own claims and see that okay, what are the major flaws of your claim, and then highlight them. Like hey, these are the flaws which you may highlight, but the idea is something else. So even if you make this argument, my argument still stands, or my argument does not cover that. or I'm opening a door for new research in the future, things like that. I'm just trying to find out the specific element of this. Yeah, can you see it here?
Yes, sir. It's
मामा क्या हुआ?
Yeah, yeah. So here in the last paragraph, I've said this thing that he anticipated taking three doubts about my paper. The first can be about adopting an informal style with pop culture references. Normally, the argument generally the criticism for your paper can be either about your the form of the paper or the substance of it. Sometimes form of the paper can also affect the substance of it. For example, I have the habit of using very informal language deliberately and using words like using like and doing poems and maybe like comics and things like that. So there always a possibility of like somebody not taking your paper like very seriously or maybe having some reservations about your style. So you can say simply say that for example the way I've said it here that hey it can be criticism of my paper, but this comes from a confirmation like anxiety of writing formal texts. Then second, I've mentioned it here that hey, there can be two more uh, doubts about my paper, and one can be about this is citation game, which I've explained this thing, and second can be about something else. So even if you have not made very even if you have not made very detailed responses to your paper, but you will still make an attempt to highlight okay why my argument is good or not good and why it still sustains your criticism. This is a very brief idea of how you can approach writing your research paper. And although it is more about the research paper that I've highlighted, but you can also use the same for your statement of purpose or for your blog post or for your emails and things like that. So for example, if you're writing statement of purpose, then you may not have to mention the methodology things like that, but having a gap in mind is always useful. So because text normally, so when you write any example, like when you write anything, the idea of text is to read somebody else, and why would somebody else read your text? There has to be some gap that you try to fill, and the and like and somebody else should know. So in your case of SOP, you can simply say that let's say throughout my academic life, I found out that why people care too much about access, but nobody's defining access and things like that. So you can show that okay like during my childhood like I look so the the way we look at literature review in research papers. In the case of SOP, it'll be part of it, it'll be phases of your research. So in this way or one way or two, you can do this. So in SOP gap, you'll have a hook, you'll have a gap that you've identified through your law school, your childhood days, and your like work experience. Therefore, your gap for your claims you can be okay coming to your university will be helpful for me and things like that. And the fourth of implications can be that hey, if I do my LLM or BCL or whatever from your college, I'm like I'll be able to at least fill this gap to some extent. So yeah, so you can use this format anywhere. And to just mention one thing, this is something which was taught to me by my professor. So this template not really belongs to me. It belongs to my professor at American University, and his name is Sean Flynn. So he's the one who taught us. But if there are any flaws, then they are mine, not of the professor. Yeah. And now we can ask questions. And yeah, if there's anything that I missed out, please feel free to ask.
Sir, if you are done with your part, there are some questions from like the side of the public, which were
Yeah.
given through the medium of the Google Forms when they were filling it out. So, so the first question would be like, how do we recognize like should we focus more upon a particular journal when we are writing something, or should we write it and then aim for a particular journal when we are talking about the publishing point of view? So should we aim a particular journal and write, or should we, just write generally on what topic we like as the fifth point sheet just for fun, and then send it across for publication?
Hmm. Yeah, good question. Yeah, I just saw a few messages. I'm happy to share the PPT of mine. No worries about that. But I'll just respond to the question. It depends on the kind of research that we're doing. So initially in your law school, I think it is still fine to write on topics and then look for the journals. But when you become but after a point, I think it is good to know the journal which you want to target, and then write from that. But for me now, I normally write things first and then I think of sending them. I have one more suggestion for law students. When I was in law school, I used to write a lot of like uh, like competitions, essay competitions. So I think that can be a very nice way of writing things and having a motivation, because if you write good essay competition, like good essay, then you can also win, which has its own perks and rewards, and then there are high chances of you publishing the same in some journal or some good place. But yeah, so in summary, what I said is that as of now, it is good to write on things and then look for the journals. As of now, don't
Oh,
look for the journals and then start writing.
surely, sir. Thank you for your answer. Devjit Saha has a question. Devjit, would you please ask the question, sir?
Better ways, but what happens actually, it is not possible to remember all these things at a time. So, can that recorded version of your speech be shared with us? Number one. Number two, actually, could you please give us example of some articles which we can go through again and again so that we can adopt your procedure of writing?
Yeah. So maybe what I can do is so my professor has already published, like he gave us a template about this, about writing like IP law reviews, like law review writing. But I think he has not published the same, so he may not be open in sharing this piece with me. But I'm happy to share his piece that he has published, uh, which is not specifically about how to write research papers, but it's more of a general idea where you can get about books, like about hook and claim and things
Or
like that.
any other
And also,
material, sir, or, sorry, or any other material that can help us to just adopt this procedure you have stated.
yeah,
Or any other
definitely.
articles, may not be your article but other articles. Just if you give the website or this URL of this, so we can go through this and just adopt the procedure the way you have spoken, so we can adopt that process.
Yeah,
Okay, am I
definitely. So
getting you,
yeah,
sir? I am getting you.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, 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 yeah. I'm getting it. So, yeah, definitely. So I look for some like whatever like I was given, so I can share it with you. And otherwise, if it is not available, then I'll write on my own a short post for this for uh, legally flawless, about explaining of what I said and what I mean by this, and
moreover,
yeah.
one more thing, could you please share your email address so that if I are having any queries, so that I can communicate to you.
Yeah,
If it
yeah,
is
yeah. I've
possible, could you please share your email address?
yeah, 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 I'm doing it now.
Also, thank you, Devjit, for your question. Just for the information, guys, the recording would be shared after the session ends, and if Sir shares anything, that would also be attached with that. So the next question would be coming from Richa Mishra. Richa, could you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, thank you so much for organizing something like this, first of all. So my question to you is that usually I find it very difficult to find the topics to start actually a research paper, right? So how do I go on about it? It's not even that, see, I have interest in criminal and I'm in the first year. So it becomes very tough for me to actually understand things and then give my own opinions on it, right? So how do I go on about it?
You are in first year or fourth
Yes,
year?
sir. Of the 5 year course.
You are in first year or fourth year?
First
I didn't
year,
get
sir.
it.
One.
Okay. Yeah. So okay, so it is a like, so there's no specific answer of how to find topics unless you like a specific field, or since in the first year you may not have founded a lot of topics. So I have a simple trick that I also used. So initially, for example, if I look at a specific news which picked my interest, then then I'll like then I will go this way, that I look at my intuition of how I look at this issue, like my own political biasness, and then I look, okay, how this issue has come up. Example, if it's an issue about like, I don't know why I'm thinking a lot about IP in general, but for example, if this issue about, let's say, mob lynching, which I've always looked at, like, and read about, then I look at this thing and I'll say, okay, what I think about it. So I'll read more and more about the issue, which is not very much law in law in itself about section something, but it's more of a social phenomena which is happening. Then I say, okay, what I think about it, and then looking about it, then I'll see something gap. Okay, I feel it's like it should be in this way, but this is what happened really. What is this gap that I can fill in this?
Okay, right.
And then you can maybe look at the laws, then you can read some papers and things like that. But I have a simple thing. So if you read any laws, for example, if you're interested in, let's say, abortion laws, or this abortion issue, then look at any recent incidents and then go through at least a couple of blog posts, at least 50 to 40 blog posts, just to have an idea of where the debate is going. And once you read like substantial number of posts, you have an idea of where you can intervene and where you can contribute, and then you also have an idea of where you want to take it. And then like once you do the exercise, you have an idea of where you're taking. But finding a topic, it is more about what you like in general. If you like tort law, then of course do it, then tort law. So, and I think for the first year, write on things which you're already which you're already studying in the like in your law school.
So, sir, basically, I read a lot of judgments every day, and the laws do actually, it makes me scratch my head. But then again, if I want to write something on it, research papers are usually long, right? So, I don't have any idea as to how to I go on about a law. See, for example, there's something known as dying declaration, all right, in criminal law. So,
Hmm.
that is actually very flawed, like extremely flawed. The basis, the premise of uh, that whole clause is very very faulty. So but then again, how do I write a research paper about it, and how long is a research paper usually of, as in
It
the
depends upon the world. World Such paper can be of 100 pages, can be of 10 to 20 pages. It depends upon the journal normally. So how long page, like how long article they are, like they can accept. But about the topic that you just said, if you really think it is flawed, then I'll say, okay, read couple of works on that. Start with the blog and then go into the paper and then see, okay, how many people have spoken about the same thing, and if they've spoken about the same thing, how your argument can be different from them given a different context.
okay,
Because, or otherwise, if you think, okay, no, it's not the way, then you can simply say that, then you can simply make like more of a descriptive paper or a blog post. Let's say this is what is happening, and this is also like what I think.
okay, all right.
And if you read a lot of cases, they may be because the problem that I normally see with my own approaches is this, that if I do not like a specific law, or if I do not know much, then it is difficult for me to write on like specific section. For example, even if there's a let's say section 9 of Arbitration Act, and if there's something which I think, okay, this is like really problematic, but since I've not read much about it, and since if I do not have the requisite mental space, then I may not be able to like write on that, even if I have an inkling that okay, this is a flawed thing to happen.
Right.
So if your interest takes you at some specific subject or like direction, always go there and read like more works on that. So once you have identified work which you've already talked about, that then you can simply do it. And like since you're in first year, so I say, instead of targeting papers, go with the blog post, national and maybe international. Talk to people and like have an idea of where things is going, and then you can do it.
Okay, works. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Richa, for your question, and thank you, sir, for the answer.
I'm
So
also
yeah.
I'll also share one interesting thing about this writing. Apar Gupta from Internet Freedom Foundation, he some time ago made an interesting video it was a 24 minutes video, but he explained about how he approaches op-ed writings, open-ed writings, which which I'll like share it with you, and which you can also look at, because and I think like it is very interestingly done, and yeah, and very helpful to you, all of you.
Surely, sir. We'll share that with our participants. So the next question would be from Shinchayang. Shinchai, can you please unmute yourself and ask the question?
Hello, sir. Good evening. Thank you for the session, sir. So actually, my question is much more inclined towards, let's say an example, uh, students who have already completed their bachelor's of law and are looking forward for an LLM course, which is pertaining towards a thesis based. Now, during their academic tenure, the particular student was not able to, get their article published in a renowned journal, international or like a domestic journal, something like that. So how can a student like pursue forward for a thesis based LLM if there is some scope for that? But academically, if we go for it, the marks are quite decent, like above average and all. But my question and my insight and my query to you is upon this part. If someone wishes to pursue LLM, which is a thesis based course in future, how can
Hmm.
someone fill that gap of not publishing any journals or something in a very renowned journal, international journal or something like that?
Yeah, so you mean once you join LLM, how do you write after that? It is the question, or you mean why do like how to get into LLM and writing things before that?
No. Actually, my question is in the sense that, for example, a student, like for example, a working professional, like for example, in my scenario, I have completed my LLB last year. But during my academic tenure, despite my best efforts, I was not able to get my article published in a renowned journal or something. Now, if I wish to pursue a thesis-based course LLM from a foreign
Hmm.
university, the prerequisite is required that there should be something working done upon this thing to wish, if you wish to pursue your LLM in a particular thesis based. So how
Yeah.
can we fill that void? If you can provide some insights or like
Hmm.
something from your end,
Yeah.
some insights from
So
your experience or
normally,
something like that.
yeah, I have a so yeah, in my LLM, it's like the same thing happen with a lot of people. We had a specific class called IP writing class, and in this class we were supposed like to write a research paper. So the what our professor did was at every I think every week, or I think every 2 weeks, you have to submit one paragraph of a paper. For example, you start with so so the main part of your paper is, I think, introduction part. Like, yeah, is the main part. So where you explain the gap, where you explain methodology, where you explain your claims and implications. So normally, once you go for the LLM, and once you have a topic in mind, keep in touch with your professor, and after like every week, just write 1 or 2 paragraphs. So that after like 3 or 4, or like 3, 4, 5 months, you have a like tangible amount of work that you can show to your professor. Because once you cross your so once you and also so there's also a way of writing. It is not like about that you can just start writing. Go with a, for example, okay, this is how it goes. You write an abstract, which is ideally 5 lines, 1 line for each thing. One is for hook, one is for gap, one is for methodology, one is for claims, and one is for implication. For an introduction part, you expand this like these 5 things and make 5 paragraphs. And after in your chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3, which you like, which are more or less your claims. Chapter 1 is normally about the historical parts of how things have evolved, and 2, 3, you make a specific arguments. So when you do it, and every part should have a transition. So after every initially, so once you finish your introduction part, for every chapter, write introduction something called topic paragraph. What are you going to write in your in your like in your specific chapter? Just mention that, and also write the concluding part of this thing. Just write first part and the last part of this thing, keeping your keeping your like main literature in mind, and you can do it for all the chapters, followed by the conclusion. Once you have it, like once you start doing it, after your, I think I think by your second semester, I think you'll have an idea of where you're taking your research. So it is not about just sitting down and just doing your research in like doing your paper in one day. It's more about having separate components of where do you want to focus on. Let's say if you want to focus more on literature review, then your first part, which is about the history, will be very much about that. So it's about the topic of then transitions and like things like that. Yeah. Did I answer your question?
Thank you, sir, for your answer. Sir, some of the part of my question is still a bit unanswered. If you don't mind, can I repeat the question, sir?
Yeah, you can repeat the question, but I'll say you can, if you can send an email to me, because I think other people also have a lot of questions.
Yeah, that was.
I'm happy to respond to
That would be better,
yeah.
sir.
Thank you,
Sure,
Rishabh,
sir.
for your
Sure, sir.
question. We have more questions coming in. Sir, before we move on to the next question, Chavi Sharma had a question that should we write an abstract in the beginning or starting? Like, I think what she means by that question is that before writing something, should we particularly write an abstract to make sure of the idea of writing that paper is good or not? So, what do you suggest?
It depends again. For me, I always write it at the beginning of the like starting of my paper. I normally start my paper with with writing an abstract, and then I go into other things. On the contrary, there's a friend of mine who has done her PhD, but she always writes abstract at the end. But I always change my abstract at the end. Maybe I'll make edits, but I do it at the first. The reason is simple, because once I have a like kind of roadmap of where I'm going and where I'm taking my reader to, then it is less likely for me to kind of lose my way. So I can have a idea in my own mind and structure. That's why that's why I do it in the beginning. But like you can also do it at the end if you want to.
Okay, thank you, sir. I think Chavi, it answers your question. The next question would be asked by Lopa Mudra Ghosh. Lopa Mudra, can you please unmute yourself?
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for your beautiful discussion on this very topic. I have never been a law student. I'm not a law student. I'm an IR student. So my question pertains to the level of unbiasedness one should portray in his or her research. For instance, let us take the Gito Act for example. So in 1946, South Africa passed what became known as the Gito Act, which was premised on racist understandings, and in the main, it relegated the people of Indian descent to second-class status. So the Indian lawyers preparing the case behind the scenes quickly adduced that South Africa would stand or fall on Article 2, Clause 7 of the UN Charter, the Domestic Jurisdiction Clause. So in essence, the clause restricted the United Nations from intervening in the internal affairs of states. Now, as a researcher of international relations, how can I approach this topic in a very unbiased, unprejudiced manner that actually helps both South Africa and India? And keeping in mind the good relationship that India has with South Africa until today. How do I write a very multi-dimensional research on this? Thank you.
Yeah, I get the question, but it's difficult to answer this question in very brief manner. But I'll try my best. It is. You do not really need to think about the India-Africa relations first of all. What you think is correct as per your understanding of thing, or how your political ideology takes you towards. Look at that, and I think it is not really possible to be unbiased. Like you can be conscious of your own privilege and your own standing and your own location, but I do not think that we can be unbiased, because the very practice of making claims and identifying gaps is in itself a kind of political process. So I do not really know that how I can ask you to be unbiased. But there's one more thing, and I don't think one needs to be multidimensional about about her or his work. you can simply take one part of it, and for example, instead of going with this larger idea of how this racist understanding of a law is problematic, you can simply say that whether a country can, like whether can country by its domestic law restrict UN or some other international agency to intervene, because given the kind of, or like given the kind of international or national tensions we are having, is it really possible for a, is it really possible, viable or legal, whatever the term that you are going to use for that as per your research, a country can stop UN or other bodies to intervene in the country. So I'll just take unidimensional instead of going multidimensional in that case. And it is also more of a very, very specific question. So it depends upon you, your research, about what your claim is, what your gap is, and what methodology you're using. For example, if you're using like historical methodology of saying that how a lot of countries have done the same and they have suffered, and if you're using, let's say, for example, if you use the economic approach of how economics of law justifies this act of this thing, then it may have a different outcome and different claims. So we can't really say that how you can be unbiased. It depends upon your methodology and also your claims that you are identified. And I know I've not answered the question specifically, but this is what I can answer as of now. You can email me if there's anything else I can help you with.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So, sir, that brings us to the last question of the day. And Mrinalika, would you be interested to ask the last question, please? Mrinalika, you're not audible. Okay, that's fine. So the last question would be asked by Kartike Mishra. Kartike, would you please ask the last question of the day to sir?
Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Sir, actually, I wanted to ask that while writing the research paper, what is the best way to cite the resources? Sir, actually, I face problem that there are various ways of citation in like AVA and other methods. So, like if we are citing any book or journal or any author, so what is the exact way?
Yeah, thanks for this question, Karthikeya. First of all, like it depends upon the journal that you're sending. If you're sending some UK journal, they'll require to use Oscola, and in the US they'll require to write Blue Book. In India, they have some universities have their own methods. We can't really say, but if you're sending for essay competitions which have not mentioned anything, then you could simply go with Indigo citation, which is like which is open and like anybody can use it. Blue Book is normally paid, so you can't really access it unless there are the means to go get it. But Indigo citation is one which is open. You can use it. And similarly, I think iLi also has one. But I think Indigo is something which is used, I think, everywhere. So you can use Indigo. And then there's also this simple uniform citation. But once you indulge in like citation thing, after a point you get used to certain. For example, even if a journal does not mention Blue Book or uniform citation, I always use Blue Book because this is something which I like, which I remember by heart. So it depends upon the journal, and if it is not mentioned in the journal, and if you want to go for the open access thing, then of course go with the Indigo. It is a good one. You can take.
So actually in MS Word there is an option where you can just write the name of journal and some other things and it will give you the exact citation. On the other hand, we can also write the citation by our own. So what the way you actually suggest that we should use MS Word or we should cite the resources by our own?
Oh, do you mean automatic citations?
Yes, sir.
So I think you mean
Yeah,
citation
if you can.
generators.
Yeah, citation generator, and then there are also ways of, for example, this Jotero and these things which you can also use. But yeah, if you're for example, if you're writing a book, or if you're writing, let's say, long paper of around, let's say, 30,000 words, then of course use something which is automatic so that you can focus more on having a structure and nuancing your claims. And if it is a very, for example, short 5,000-6,000 words, then I think it is good if you do it by your own, because even if you go like automatic, at the end I think like you have to check how the machine has done it. So it depends upon two things: how long you use the paper. If it's book or something, then of course go automatic and then make a like just like check it on end. And if it's a short paper, then I think like to do it yourself. So that you also have an idea of how it is done, and you can make changes after that. But go with writing, like go with doing yourself, so that like you can also like edit and review things when it is done automatically. Otherwise, you will not be able to identify the problems.
Thank you for insight, sir. Grateful.
Yeah, no
So
worries.
with
And
that,
you can call me Lokesh. All of you can call me Lokesh. No problem. No need to call me sir.
so
I think some people have a question. I think Naini has one question. Vidhi, Nilanksha has one question. Can you just can Chavi has one question? Yeah, we have
I
answered
think we'll
Chavi.
be running out of time. I think
Yeah,
guys, you can connect with sir on various
yeah,
platforms.
you can
LinkedIn is available on
yeah,
LinkedIn. So.
yeah, you can send me. Yeah, and Apar's wait, let me just share this Apar's YouTube video with you,
Yeah, so
which
we'll
is really
share
helpful.
the link of the uploaded video on our WhatsApp groups, and
Okay, cool.
you can connect with sir, and he's there on LinkedIn as well. So that brings
Yeah,
us to
send me a
the
message.
anything else, sir? Yeah. So that brings us to the end of the session, and I, on behalf of the Legally Flawless team, would like to extend my heartiest gratitude to Lokesh sir for explaining the complex topic of writing research papers in easy terms and addressing the queries of our participants. Further, I would like to thank all of the participants for joining this webinar and making it a success. In order to stay updated of such opportunities in future, kindly join our WhatsApp groups. The links have been shared in the comment section, and you can connect
I
with
have
us. Yeah.
I just have one thing to mention
Yes, sir. For
before
sure.
everybody leaves. Please be careful about what we cite, because I see a lot of like I just want people to be cautious of who they cite, because sometimes when we cite people, we also borrow their ideas and we kind of legitimizing their claims and their opinions. So if you're citing a lot of American and European authors, then and you think that we are kind of legitimizing their ideas, which is fine to an extent, because there's a lot of interesting work. But I think at least make a conscious effort of finding people like from global south and women authors, and do cite them, because we need to like there has to be diversity of views that you represent. Otherwise it's just same thing that like everybody keeps talking about. Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you for that last comment, sir, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I hope it was a very interactive session, and I hope you guys learned something out of it. Thank you so much for joining us, sir, today, and that brings us to the end of the session, guys. If you have more queries, if you want more such sessions, do reach us out, and I think Lokesh sir would be interested to join us back if we got like more comments, and sir would be ready to guide you all. Thank you so much, everyone.